Okay, thank you for joining. We're going to be talking about understanding your 401k. I'm Bill Tasker, and we're going to be joined by Michael McAvoy. I'm going to put on my reading glasses so I can see a little bit better, and we're going to get right in on the presentation. So, why your 401k is an important part of your retirement planning. Tax advantages. You're either going to reduce your taxable income today or benefit from tax-free withdrawals later. Accessibility. It's your most common workplace retirement plan, right? It's easy. It comes right out of your paycheck. Impact. It's generally your largest single retirement asset. How does your plan work? It's automatic savings, right? Contributions are taken directly from your paycheck. There's a couple of different account types, pre-tax, traditional, or after-tax, which is your Roth 401k plan. What are the limits? Well, for 2025, the limits are about 23,500, and there's some different contribution catch-ups depending upon your age. So if you're 49 years or younger, once again, you've got 23,500. But if you're 50 to 59, there's a $7,500 catch-up, so you can put in $31,000 max. But then there's a little sliver contribution age range from 60 to 63. You can put in an additional amount, so you can put in close to $35,000. By understanding your employer match, this is a key part that some people get, some people kind of go by the wayside and they don't take advantage of it. There's a couple of, three steps here. You want to contribute enough to get your full employer match because it's free money. You want to act fast. The sooner you start, the more time compounding works for you. Know your plan. Check the employer match so you don't miss out. For example, if your employer offers a 50% match up to 6% of your salary, make sure you're contributing at least 6% to get the full benefit. If not, you're throwing your money away. For example, let's say for the first $5,000 you contribute, your employer is going to give you $2,500. If you don't put in the first $5,000, you're giving some of that free money away. Let's say in an extreme example, you don't put any money away in your 401k. You could be just throwing away $2,500 because your employee is giving you free money. Here's an example between Ryan and Sean. They're both age 30. They both contribute $400 a month. Ryan's employer is going to give a 50% match or about $200 a month. Sean's employer gives nothing on an employer match. They both earn about 9% a year. At the end of 25 years, Ryan's got 640,000. Sean has 426,000. So you can see just that extra $200 a month can make a substantial difference over time. The power of compound growth. It's earnings on earnings. Returns are reinvested, creating growth on growth. Time is critical. Starting the earlier that you start, compounding works to your advantage. Small changes add up. Waiting even 10 years can mean hundreds of thousands less at retirement. You want to be consistent. Steady contributions over time could be more powerful than trying to catch up later. It's the general concept of principal rate times time. The more I put in, the higher the return I get, and the more time I have, the more I'm going to end up with at the end of the day. But the key concept really is time. The more I have to compound, the more I'm going to have at the end of the day, all things being equal, and the easier it is to get to a higher amount. If you look at the graph, if I start at age 25, I could be left with about $700,000 at age 65. But if I start at age 35, I'm left with 367,000. And in the extreme case, if I start at age 55, I've got about 95,000. Now, that doesn't mean you can't, get to a higher sum. If I start later, I could max my 401k contributions out in my later years. I can put the 30,000 plus, max contribution in if I have, the wherewithal to do so. But it makes it that much harder to get to a larger lump sum. Let time work for you. Put the money in earlier. Try to max it out, obviously, as much as you can. But the power of time and the compounding value of time is really the key. All right, let's talk about the traditional versus Roth 401k. Traditional 401k contributions are pre-tax. It reduces your taxable income today, but your withdrawals are taxed in retirement. Who does this benefit? Well, if you're in a higher tax bracket now, you're going to get a tax break. You're going to pay for that when you take the money out. It's your RMD time, at age 73, or when you start taking out your 401k assets at 59 and a half. But you get a substantial tax break. The higher the tax bracket you're in, you're going to save on federal and state taxes, but you pay for it when you have to take the money out. If you use a Roth 401k, you don't get a tax break now. There's no deduction, but when you take the money out during your retirement in that same age range, at 59 and a half to 73 plus, you don't pay any tax on it. Who would that benefit? Well, if you're in a lower income bracket now, you might want to fund your Roth 401k, expecting higher taxes later. When you're in a higher tax bracket, you take it out tax-free. So maybe my first, 10 to 15 years of my work environment, when I'm in a lower tax bracket and I'm not going to get that high of a tax break to begin with, maybe it makes sense to fund my Roth 401k now, let that money grow and double or triple it. And then when I take that bucket out, when I retire, that'll be tax-free. You want to kind of play the game that way. So once again, looking at our chart here, traditional versus Roth 401k, and our traditional contributions are made before tax, withdrawals are going to be taxed. For our Roth 401k, contributions are made after tax, withdrawals are not taxed when you take them out for retirement use. Some plans allow you to split them. I have, so I see, many clients who have a hybrid plan. If the company allows it, you can do a traditional and Roth contributions, 401k contributions within the same plan. It just depends on the employer plan. And that's something that you'll want to ask your HR department about. Well, that's completes my portion of the plan. I'm going to hand it over to Mike to complete the rest of the webinar.
Thanks, Bill. Now that we've covered how the plan works, let's talk about one of the most important parts of your 401k, making sure your investments are aligned with your goals and your risk tolerance. One of the most important steps you can take with your 401k is making sure your investments match both your risk tolerance and your long-term goals. Your asset allocation, how much you have in stocks, bonds, and other investments, is the single biggest driver of long-term returns. For example, I often meet people in their mid-40s who have 50% of their 401k in bonds. And if you still have 20 years until retirement and you want your money to grow, you might want to be closer to 80% in stocks and 20% in bonds. That difference can be huge. Historically, a 50-50 portfolio might return around 5 to 6% a year, while an 80-20 portfolio could be closer to 7 to 8% per year. Over that 20 years, that extra 1 to 2% return can make a significant difference. And at the end of the day, the right allocation depends on your personal risk tolerance. But the key is to know what you're invested in and make sure it lines up with your goals. Let's shift gears and talk about how to read your 401k statement. Your statement usually includes your contributions, your employer match, any gains or losses, and fees. And it also shows your asset allocation, how your money is divided among stock, bonds, company stock, or other investments. And understanding this snapshot is important. It helps you see where your money is going, how much you're contributing, and whether you're still on track with your goals. On the right, you can see here the asset allocation pie chart. This is where you find out exactly what percentage you have in stocks, bonds, or company stock. We'll dig a little bit deeper into why this matters on the next slide, but for now, make it a habit of checking your statement regularly. It's one of the best ways to catch issues early and stay aligned with your plan. Now that we know how to read your statement, let's look at what your 401k is actually being invested in. This table shows the different funds inside a sample account. You can see here we have a target date fund, the T. Rowe Price 2030, making up about 25% of the account. several stock index funds making up another 50 to 60%, some bonds, and even 10% sitting in company stock. This is why reviewing your statement matters. You might not even realize that 10% of your money is tied up in your employer stock, or that a big portion of your account is in bonds when you still have many years to invest. Understanding this mix helps you see whether your current allocation matches your goals and risk tolerance. And if you want to be more aggressive, you might consider increasing your stock allocation. And if you want to be more conservative, you might consider shifting to more bonds or stable value funds. The point is to adjust your plan when you exactly know where your money is going. Once you know what funds you're invested in, the next step is to ask yourself whether those investments and the costs that come with them are the best fit for you. And that brings us to one of the biggest choices you'll face in your 401k, whether to stick with a target default fund or build your own customized portfolio. Most employer plans automatically place you in a target date fund, like this 2030 T. Rowe Price fund. These funds are convenient because they handle the mix of stocks and bonds for you, automatically becoming more conservative as you get closer to retirement. But convenience can sometimes come at a cost. This fund, for example, has an expense ratio of 0.56%. And what that means is if you had $200,000 invested, that would be close to around $1,200 per year in fees. And by comparison, if you build a simple portfolio like here to the right of 3 low-cost index funds, you'd be paying closer to $760 per year. That's a $360 difference annually, which compounds over time. So the key takeaway isn't that target date funds are bad. For many people, they're a perfectly good choice, but it's important to check your options and know what you're paying and make sure your portfolio is set up in a way that matches your risk tolerance, time horizon, and retirement goals. So what happens when you leave a job? You actually have 4 main options. The first is leaving it with your former employer. This can work, but you may have fewer investment choices and it's easy to lose track of accounts over time. The second is rolling it into your new employer's plan. This keeps everything into one place and makes it much easier to manage your retirement savings. The third is rolling it into an IRA. This option usually gives you the most flexibility and the widest range of investments. And if done correctly, it's a tax-free rollover, so you avoid triggering any taxes or penalties. And the last is cashing it out. And this is almost the least favorable option because you'll owe ordinary income taxes on the money. And if you're under 59 and a half, you may also face a 10% early withdrawal penalty. And the key takeaway here is to make sure you don't lose track of old accounts. Millions of dollars go unclaimed every year because people forget about their old 401ks. So keep a list of where your accounts are and consider consolidating them when it makes sense. Here are the 4 most common mistakes we see people make with their 401ks. The first is not contributing enough to get the full employer match, which is essentially leaving free money on the table. The second is overinvesting in company stock. This creates extra risk because your paycheck and your retirement are tied to the same company. The third is forgetting about old accounts at past jobs. These often sit unmanaged for years, sometimes with high fees. And last is cashing out too early, which can trigger taxes, penalties, and set your retirement savings back dramatically. Avoiding just these 4 mistakes can save you significant money over your lifetime. On the flip side, here are some easy wins you could put into action right now. Always contributing enough to get the full match, which is free money your employer is offering, so don't miss out on it. The second is increasing your contributions by 1% each year or each time you get a raise, since you'll barely notice the difference in your paycheck, but it will truly make a big difference over time. The third is reviewing your investment options regularly. If you don't want to pick your investments yourself, the target date fund is a good default, but make sure it still aligns with your goals and risk tolerance. And lastly is keeping your beneficiaries up to date. Life events like marriage or kids are great reminders to check these. And even small steps like these can add up to a big difference by the time you retire. To wrap things up, here are 4 simple action steps you can take right after this webinar. The first is logging into your 401k account and checking your contribution rate. See exactly how much you're saving today. And the second is confirm that you're getting the full employer match. If not, and if it fits within your budget, increase your contributions until you do, because again, it's free money your employer is giving you. The third is deciding whether traditional or Roth contributions make the most sense for you. This choice can impact your taxes today and in retirement. And lastly is tracking down any old accounts from past jobs and consider consolidating them into your 401k or an IRA so they're easier to manage. These small steps can have a huge impact over time, and even just checking your contributions or even making a small adjustment can add thousands to your future retirement balance.